She refuses to sit in the living room. The uncertainty is killing us. I'm sure on the other side of the border, a Palestinian grandfather is saying the same things I am. He's fed up also, but can't convince the Hamas people to stop the violence.
Trying to lead a normal life, Sderot's teens turned a bomb shelter into a music room. They call it Sidrock, in honor of Sderot's rock stars. Kobe Oz, the leader of the famous T-Pax band, grew up in Sderot. Israelis voted overwhelmingly for the T-Pax to represent Israel in the 2007 Eurovision Song Contest. In front of some 1 billion television viewers, the T-Pax created a tempest with their politically charged entry, Push the Button. In the hip Mizrahi rap song about nuclear annihilation, Kobe warns,
"The world is full of terror. If someone makes an error, he's going to blow us up to a kingdom come. He's going to push the button, push the button, push the button. I don't want to die. I want to see the flowers bloom. Don't want to go kaput kaboom."
His lyrics reflected Israelis' anxieties about Iranian President who wants Israel wiped off the map. Life doesn't look promising, so far as Sderot. Its bloody June 2007 coup against Fatah, Hamas took an enormous arms stockpile, significantly increasing its rocket capabilities. It is also smuggling in sophisticated Russian-made long-range missiles with a greater payload of explosives capable of hitting Ashkelon, which is 10 miles north of Sderot. Ashkelon, a city of 200,000, is Israel's second biggest port, and its power station supplies a quarter of Israel's electricity. Hamas also has Russian-made anti-tank and anti-aircraft missiles, rocket-propelled grenade launchers, thousands of M16 and Kalashnikov assault rifles. Islamic Jihad has one of the Al-Quds 4 rockets, which is a reported range of 22 kilometers. Today, among the 24,000 mostly Mizrahi residents are newcomers from Ethiopia and the former Soviet Union. Sderot, which means fields, was founded in the 1950s for destitute Jews from Morocco, Algeria, and other Muslim countries. People pleaded futilely with the Moroccan-born resident defense minister, Amir Peretz, to stop the rockets. Peretz, the first Mizrahi to head the Labour Party, did little before he was ousted in June 2007. It took an Israeli-Russian billionaire to give nervous Sderot residents some respite. Arkady Gaidamak sent thousands of Sderot residents on an all-expense-paid vacation to Eilat.
"The government doesn't do anything. We should build a statue to Gaidamak," said a bankrupt store owner. "He has an open heart."
And an open checkbook. When the Hezbollah rockets hit northern Israel, the controversial tycoon set up a beach tent village to house thousands of fleeing from the shelling. Gaidamak bought Beitar Jerusalem, a soccer team with a fervent Mizrahi support. In 2007, Gaidamak launched the Social Justice Political Party. His most avid supporters, Mizrahim and Russians. Nothing like a few billion to build a political movement. We probably better switch to Tuvia.
Okay. Yeah.
Which is appropriate, actually, because this is now, we're switching to the fiction sequel to Fiddler on the Roof. And this is, just to kind of catch you up a little bit, after, if you remember the movie, Tuvia was, at the end of the movie, they were leaving Anatevka, where they lived, and were going somewhere, didn't know where. This book picks up with him getting to a crossroads to decide to go to America to see one of his daughters or to go to Israel. So he decides to go to Israel, lots of trials, tribulations, etc. along the way. But they're trying to get, he's trying to get involved with some kibbutzes that Baron Rothschild, if you know the name, was setting up a lot of kibbutz areas in Israel. And so this is when, I think this is the second one he's at, and he meets his first Mizrahi Jew, a Jew from Yemen. We'll skip that part. Let's get right to Tuvia. There we go.
Where?
Page 245.
245? I
Yeah.
love that.
I know. When the long-gowned, long-side-locked, prayer-shawl and swathed Yemenite first arrived in Sikron Yaakov, the Russian Jews found it difficult to believe that this golden-skinned apparition could be a Jew. The first time Tuvia saw him, he mistook him for an Arab. But an Arab with tzitzit and payas? The sight was a puzzle. When Elisha joined them in prayer, it seemed even more absurd. Everyone knew that only a Jew could be included in the minyan. Still more bewildering, the Yemenite spoke Hebrew more fluently than all of them. True, the melodious wailing which ushered from his lips was a Hebrew that Tuvia had never heard, but it was the language of his forefathers, nonetheless. "Are you really a Jew?" Tuvia asked in surprise.
The man nodded. Yes. He looked at Tuvia from head to foot. Are you?
Am I a Jew?
You don't look like a Jew, the Yemenite said.
Tuvia's back stiffened. My mother and father were Jews. Their mother and father were Jews. Their mother and father before them, all the way back to Abraham, he declared.
So were mine, the man answered, standing in a pose of defiance, but smiling at Tuvia with his eyes. All the way back to Abraham. We must be related.
Nonsense. Your skin is brown as clay.
Did you think that Abraham was Yiddish? Spoke Yiddish?
Of course not, but he certainly wasn't black.
There is a tradition which teaches that when God gave the Torah on Sinai amidst thunder and fire, the people who loved God the most ran forward to get as close as they could, and their skin was burned by the flames. They were the Yemenite Jews. Others, frightened by the fire and thunder, ran away to the edge of the camp. These became Ashkenazim. In punishment, when the exile came, God sent these Jews far away from his land to the cold northern countries of Russia and Europe. The Jews whose skin was darkened because they rushed to be close to the mountain, God kept them near him, even in the exile from Israel, in neighboring lands, like my people, the Yemenite Jews.
I'll miss a story if I ever heard one, Tuvia declared. The exotic-looking Jew smiled a warm, happy smile. His eyes, black as coal, seemed to glow. Graciously, he invited Tuvia to join him in his quarters for a drink, and that's how their friendship began. Surprisingly, he led Tuvia to one of the settlement's chicken coops. Upon their arrival in Sikron Yaakov, the Yemenite family had been assigned to live with the chickens. With a wife and 11 children, the arrangement made for cramped living, but the happy-eyed Jew hadn't complained. The coop had a roof, and the family wasn't bothered at all by the smell of the fowls. During the day, the chickens didn't stop squawking, but having been blessed with their own brood of children, Elisha and his wife were no strangers to noise. During the night, in harmony with the Almighty's plan for creation, the chickens slept peacefully until the first signs of morning, when it was time to get up and work in the fields. Though Elisha was the same age as Tuvia, he looked 20 years younger. So did his wife. If it had not been for the white kerchief she wore swirled on her head, Tuvia would have mistaken her for one of his own daughters. Her color was more golden red than her husband's, and she had the same dark, glowing eyes. As if times had never changed, she wore the tribal robe that Yemenite women had been wearing for ages. For the length of Tuvia's visit, she never uttered a word. Most of the time, she stayed out of view behind the curtains that they used as a room divider at the far end of the coop. Occasionally, she would appear to see if their plate of grapes needed refilling, or she would send one of her strikingly beautiful daughters to do it. Like Tuvia's wife Golda, she had served generous portions, but whereas Golda was quick to add her opinion to every discussion, Elisha's wife let her husband do all the talking. Their eldest children were a little older than Tuvia's, while their youngest was still crawling on the floor. All had the same gem-like Yemenite eyes. The hue of their skin was the color of rich golden earth. The boys had side locks down to their shoulders, and the long black hair of the girls hung down their backs like the manes of Arabian horses. Over a glass of Iraq, the happy, thankful smile never left his face, and Elisha told Tuvia his life story. Like every other place on the globe where the wandering Jews had settled, there had been good times and there had been bad times in Yemen. For several generations, Jews had been left to live in peace, but like in Russia, things eventually had taken a turn for the worse. The Yemenite Jews were third-class citizens, hounded by Muslim terror, victims of beatings and theft. Their complaints to the ruling Turks fell on deaf ears. The only work they could find was invariably outside the city, and highwaymen made roadways a peril. For years, Elisha had heard stories about Eretz Yisrael, and the gigantic oranges and figs which a man could barely lift with 2 hands, and about the Yemenites who had become wealthy businessmen there. When the Muslims began killing Jews, instead of merely praying in the direction of Zion 3 times a day, Elisha decided to embark on the long and dangerous journey. Now, skipping ahead a little bit, as in a lot of early settlements in Israel, there were a lot of swamps, and disease happened a lot, and cholera was very bad. And one of Tuvia's grandchildren got sick, and they're taking him to a doctor in a neighboring settlement.
I'm afraid the boy has cholera too. We will try to bleed him, but it hasn't helped the others. I'll ask Dr. Schwartz to look at him just to be sure.
Bleed him? Tuvia asked. The idea sounded awful. Didn't the Torah teach that a person's life force was contained in his blood?
That's the standard procedure, the doctor said.
Won't that just weaken him? The young doctor shrugged. I won't allow it, Tuvia emphatically shouted. I won't allow it, do you hear?
Very well, the doctor said. We really only do it when we don't know what other action to take.
A great weariness overtook Tuvia. Tuvia and his daughter Bathsheba were riding back to the center of the moshav when a bearded Jew ran up to the wagon.
Are you Tuvia? He called.
That's right. And who are you?
Just a Jew, the man said.
How do you know my name?
Well, I had a dream last night that someone named Tuvia would be coming, and so far you're the only stranger I've seen.
May your dream be a good omen.
I have a message for you.
My ears are ringing.
You are to immerse the sick boy in the holy mikvah in Safad. There God will answer your prayers.
Safed was the name of the renowned holy city where the great Jewish mystics had lived. The Ari, Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, was the most famous of all. Much of the Kabbalah had been based on his teachings. There was a legend that anyone who immersed himself in the Ari mikvah would be miraculously blessed. Its waters supposedly flowed from the Garden of Eden.
Oh, Father, you don't really believe in such nonsense, Bathsheba chided.
Quiet! Go ahead.
He turned back to the man in the road.
What else did you see in your dream?
Not a thing, the Jew confessed. The young fellow who told me took off in a hurry.
What was his name?
That's right, said the stranger. He told me to tell you his name.
He paused theatrically, as if to heighten Tuvia's suspense. No?
He called himself Schmidt.
Tuvia felt chills run up and down his body.
The man waved a hand and continued on his way, wishing the boy a complete recovery.
Tuvia watched him disappear behind one of the neighboring houses.
It's nothing but superstition, Bathsheba said. Schmidt is dead.
The righteous don't die. Their souls go on living. With an urgent command to the horse, Tuvia turned the wagon around in the road. Within minutes, they were back in the infirmary.
You're not really thinking of taking Moshe to Shafed.
I certainly am.
He doesn't have the strength for the journey.
You heard the doctor. There is nothing they can do for him here. Nothing that Bathsheba could say would dissuade him. She knew that arguing with her father was useless. Tuvia was convinced that the dream had been a message from heaven, and that the mysterious Jew was none other than the famed prophet Elijah, who traveled from city to city helping Jews the world over. It seemed like craziness to Bathsheba, but she couldn't let her father travel alone with no one to look after the boy. So she decided to go along the journey to Safed. She supplied them with enough water, cheeses, black bread, and fruit to last for a week. She even packed along a bottle of vodka, which she found in one of the infirmary's cabinets. Now there's a good doctor, Tuvia said. To reach Safed, they first had to travel north to Haifa, and then along the long winding road high up into the Galilee mountains. The journey took them 4 days. Moshe slept most of the way. Occasionally he opened his eyes, but he had nothing to say. He lived on sips of water and tiny nipples of cheese. Bathsheba sang to him and told him stories, but much of the time she wasn't sure that he heard. While Tuvia had never studied Kabbalah, he had learned a few things here and there about the secrets of the Torah. The influence of the Hasidic movement had been spread throughout Russia, and the mystics passing through Anatevka had often dined at his house, sharing with Tuvia the mysteries revealed in the Tanya and the Zohar. For a simple Jew like Tuvia, the concepts made his head spin. What good did it do knowing the secrets of creation when you had to go back to milking your cows? The Kabbalists described the immersion in a mikveh as a mystical return to the womb. The person emerging from the ritual pool was like someone reborn. If he had sinned and repented, now he would be forgiven because he was like a new being.